Good morning once again. This is attorney Gurpatwan Singh Phanu, and I represent the plaintiffs, that is American Justice Center, and the named plaintiffs who were the victims of the genocide violence of 2002 under the leadership of Narendra Modi, who was the Chief Minister of the state of Gujarat at that time and the Prime Minister of India at this time. A complaint has been filed against Narendra Modi under ATS and TVPA, which gives jurisdiction for any crimes against humanity and human rights violations that have occurred outside the United States also. So the victims have been in the country for a few years, and their names have been withheld for a reason and for the threat their family members and other victims have gone through. So the threat is not only to the victims, but to their families, as we have all seen from the time Narendra Modi came into the power. Anyone who raises a voice against him, they go through the torture, they go through the reign of terror, including journalists, including all those human rights activists and the attorneys. So we have filed the case with allegations of acts and omissions Narendra Modi committed during 2002 genocidal attacks and violence against the Muslim community. It has been more than 12 years that the victims have been trying to seek justice, and the Indian judicial system, which comes under the political powers of India, even though being a democratic country, would not allow a fair investigation. And that's what happened in the case of Narendra Modi. And he was never charged. And there's no FIRs that have been filed against him. So summons has been issued. We will be discussing the next steps which we are taking to serve him in the coming days. Since he has public engagements throughout Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, so we have hired 3 different process service companies so that we can serve the summons of the court to him. This is basically from our side. I will hand it over to Mr. Wellington. He is the director of AJC, who's the plaintiffs and who are seeking justice for the religious minorities, attacks on religious minorities in India, starting from the Muslim community of 2002. Mr. Wellington.
Thank you. I'd like to start this meeting off not on a sad note, but a happy note that the sun is shining. It is a time that the truth must be told. I will try to bring to you a history of how we began. I bring to you greetings from Harvey, Illinois, a diverse community that celebrates our common humanities and looks forward to hope, to the endless possibilities of a greater future. This may sound philosophical, but that's all we have. The ideals and the words that our forefathers have set forth in the United States. I am Joseph Whittington, Jr., the president of American Justice Center. American Justice is an organization established to secure justice for the victims of mass violence and genocide, especially in the case where the predator are deemed too powerful to hold accountable. Our vision as a humanitarian program, we believe that our families are in the eyes of God. God doesn't distinguish between anyone in this room. My heart can be transferred into your heart. My blood can be transferred into your blood. My legs can be transferred into your legs, and we can live as human beings. We must learn to be tolerant of each other. As an alderman, I have a constituents that I've grown fond of. As a Christian and as an African man, American, I have learned to love the American dream. As a democracy, and as India is a democracy, we must learn to be tolerant of each other. I stand before you today to announce that the American Justice Center has filed a case action for visiting Prime Minister Modi, brought by 3 survivors of the Johar massacre of 2002 under the Alien Torture Claims Act. Our decision to hold Mr. Modi personally accountable is consistent with the findings of the Human Rights Organization and the Independent Citizens Tribunal of India. There is evidence that Mr. Modi responded to the horrific violence of 2002, including his public statement attributing to the systematic massacre of over 2,000 innocent people in Johar and displaced over 100,000 people, mostly from the minority community. Our action is also consistent with the position of the United States Department, denied Mr. Modi entrance to the United States since 2005. Under the International Religious Freedom Act, for his egregious violations of religious freedom, Mr. Modi is now in America, able to travel under the protection of his immunity as Prime Minister, the head of state. But the victims who've lost their loved ones are asking us to speak for them. This opportunity today was to address that. Opportunity, the fate that we have to address it today. That's why I opened my statement to say the sun is shining. This is a happy day for the victims who cannot speak, who are fearful for their loved ones in their native country. As the president of American Justice Center and an African American, I can identify with civil rights. But America has a Constitution that protects us. And I'm sure that India has a Constitution that protects the people. I'm not only empathetic with the situation of minorities in India, but also urge the international community to take note of the situation with respect to the human rights and religious freedom of India. Gujarat massacre was a monumental tragedy. It claimed the lives of innocent people running for safety, not knowing where to go, expecting the government to safeguard their lives and their property. If Mahatma Gandhi, who fought for freedom from Britain, fought for freedom, was here today, he would jump aboard for this challenge, the moral issue. The victims need answers. My friends who ask me to speak cannot, for fear. Martin Luther King once said, "Our lives begin and end the day we become silent about things that matter." I say to you, and I believe Martin Luther King agreed if he was here alive. Gujarat massacre matters. Justice for innocent people killed matters. Justice for the hundreds of women raped matters. More importantly, doing something to secure justice matters. It doesn't make a difference what my faith is or what my purpose is. I'm just a voice of what my Constitution and what my country offers. Being here in New York gave me the opportunity to see diversity. That's what we must have throughout the world if we as a human race are going to get to the future. Civil rights is the issue. It matters. Answers matter. There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor popular. There comes a time when one must stand up and be counted. We, the American Justice Center, applaud the citizens who speak up in silence. To stand up for justice, for the right way. I applaud you for your courage in speaking truth to power and continue the struggle of justice. The American Justice Center is with you. I like to think of the purpose of me being here is that I'm just a leaf that is in the wind. I'm here because I'm born to be here. I never asked to address this issue, but this issue lies in our country as well. But it is based off of the foundation of our Constitution that the world around us wants to emulate and copy. When Prime Minister Moti came to the United States, he came to our soil. The opportunity of faith brought him to us to address this issue. Other than that, it had been a continued something forgotten. But the citizens that I represent, I listen to their stories. I can see the parable that we as African Americans went through for over 300 years. But last 100 years, we have an African American president. It was unheard of. So I believe that Prime Minister Moti is the symbol of a time that the victims who are long gone want someone to say something in their behalf. They deserve an answer from one of the greatest leaders of our time. Prime Minister Moti will always be the gavel that the massacre's victims will hold up every time they hear his name. I'm just a voice for the few. Thank you, and God bless you.
From here, we just wanted to open it to you all. And yes, please.
Sure. Sean Tannen of AFP. You mentioned a bit about trying to serve the summons. Can you explain a little bit about that? What do you expect to happen? And what's the likelihood you think it'd be successful to have a process go forward?
See, we are very optimistic that we'll be able to serve him because Narendra Modi is going on many public engagements, meetings, public places. We have hired process servers. Another thing which we are doing, and we are living up to the American public, to the American values. The American Justice Center just informed me that they are offering a reward of $10,000 to anyone who will serve Narendra Modi and will come first with a service and with a video and pictures that he has been served. So it's a $10,000 reward to anyone who can serve Narendra Modi, besides what our law firm has hired, the process servers, which will be fanning out to all the places where Mr. Narendra Modi is supposed to be.
Hi, David Ingram with Reuters. Two things. Why is this suit being filed now? Is this just an attempt to embarrass him while he's in the United States? And second, isn't he immune from suits like this under these laws as interpreted by the Supreme Court?
Thank you. See, there is no question of embarrassment. He should have been embarrassed when he was leading the death squads that killed innocent Muslim community. United States banned him and shunned him for the 9 years. So the victims were waiting for this opportunity since 2005. This civil lawsuit can be filed with personal jurisdiction, and the courts have personal jurisdiction only when Narendra Modi is coming to the United States or is in the United States. Regarding the immunity, that question we will discuss. We see that as a prime minister, he will be immune from the acts which he has committed as the prime minister. But this particular act or omission which he did in 2002, genocidal violence against the Muslim community, he is not immune from the acts which he did as the chief minister of the state of Gujarat. Yes, please.
A senior State Department official today, in fact, they were asked this question. They said that as a general legal principle, sitting heads of government enjoy immunity from suits in American courts, and they cannot be served papers or handed over summons and papers to begin this process. So this is what they have said on sort of today itself regarding this. So how do you intend to take this forward? Coming from the U.S. government itself?
That's very much true. The heads of the states are immune, as I mentioned earlier. He is immune from the acts which he committed as the head of the state. But the allegations against Narendra Modi is not what he committed as the Prime Minister of India. The allegations are when he was the Chief Minister of the state of Gujarat. And those acts and omissions which he committed in 2002, he will be held accountable, and that's what the law says. So the next question is serving. There are multiple ways to serve him. As the time is going to come, we will keep you guys updated. And as I mentioned, we are keeping it open to the American values and to the American public. Serve him and get $10,000.
Matthew Pennington from AP.
Yes.
If you hired 3 companies to try and serve the summons on him, why are you also offering this award? Are you saying that any private citizen can make a copy of the summons and try and serve it to him?
Yes, that's what we are doing, because we wanted to raise an awareness amongst the American public that this is an individual who is coming over here, covering his face as a head of the state, but look behind that real face. We wanted to raise this awareness to the Americans and the American values that the human rights violators, you cannot host them, you cannot trade business with them, because this is not an American value. We want to take it to the public that let's challenge it, let's serve him, and just you should be aware that he is with one of us right now.
Do you see any prospect at all that he could appear in a U.S. court in connection with this case?
We are certain. As a head of state, he will have immunity, and as another journalist just mentioned, that Department of State already mentioned that he is immune. But immunity is only for the head of state for the acts which he has committed as the head of the state. But the acts which he committed before he became head of the state, so it's like that. You can commit a crime, you can be responsible for the genocide of the religious minorities, and suddenly you are elected to the head of the state. That doesn't make you pious. That doesn't take away the crimes that has been committed.
Can I ask another one?
Sure.
I know you said that you don't want to name the plaintiffs for protection. I understand that. But could you give us a little bit more detail about their experiences? Are they living in the U.S. and what their experiences were in 2002?
Yes, they are in the U.S. What they have experienced is given in depth in the complaint. One of the named individual whose name is out there, Asif, he not only survived 2002, but later on he started to work with the NGOs for the victims. He was threatened and he was tortured even after that. They are very much in the United States. The other victim, we are withholding the name, other plaintiff, with the threat to their families, which they have received in the past. So their experience is they are lucky. They just survived. there are thousands who could not make it to the United States. So they are the voice of the voiceless who were buried in 2002.
Who was the source of the funds, $10,000 which you've put as reward for any of these services? What's the source of this fund? Is it the American Justice Center?
Yes.
Has it been collected? Is there a donation that happened? What? Where?
I wouldn't know that. This is for American Justice Center. They will inform me. They just informed me that this is going to be a $10,000 reward. And since that is a nonprofit organization, I'm sure they will collect it.
Was this organization founded for the purpose of this lawsuit? And who set up the organization?
This organization is definitely set up to take the cases of the victims of the religious minorities in India. Mr. Wilkinson is the director, one of the directors. Another director is Dr. Bradley, who worked with Dr. Martin Luther King for the civil rights movement also.
Who is Dr. Bradley? Could you say his full name?
Dr. John Bradley.
And Mr. Whittington, could you tell a little bit more about how you became involved? And you said you had constituents who were interested in this case?
Yes. In 2003, as an elected official, we had an opportunity to give an award for a resolution by the City Council to condemn the massacre in Judah. That's on our as resolution by the City of Harvey. From that brought conversation, meetings, and a lot of the citizens that are residents in my ward finally started feeling that they were able to talk. And in those discussions, we started recognizing some similarities. Something was forgotten. They wanted, as guests or citizens in America, they wanted to speak to our principles. This Constitution that we have here is fantastic. So, but they were fearful of the past. And as we talked and gathered this decision for the American Justice Center came about. It's not something that was planned, it evolved. And everything to this day was by faith. That's what we believe in. So that's if I've answered your question.
Yes, you have.
Okay.
Sorry, it was set up in 2003, you say?
No, the discussion was a resolution in 2003 for these victims of the massacre. There was something at that time that was going on in India, and we started talking about it. And my community is a very diverse community, as I said before. We are trying to work together like New York, trying to come together to make a city grow. And so it happens that the City Hall is in a vicinity of a mixed, diverse community. And that's how we started working together.
So when was AJC set up?
And prior, about this year. This year.
You obviously know it's an uphill battle. I mean, the State Department's come out and said that, you know.
Yes.
You offered $10,000 award. You know that chances are the likelihood
Yes.
is not
Yes.
very good. Can you talk about how the symbolism of victory in itself, what do you?
The symbolism is the victory. As too often as human beings, we tend to get apathy and think that this will not come again. You must address it. That's what we do. We must address it. American justice is to address it. Wherever it hides, wherever it is. If it's not you today, it's me tomorrow. If it's not me, it's you. You must be vigilant and focus on it. So it was something that had to be done. It has to be done. It has to be not in the back of your mind, but in the forefront. Would you want your children to be forgotten after a massacre? Would you want your community that you grew up in forgotten in a massacre? Would you go hide in the corner if you've been raped, molested, tortured, forgotten? The opportunity came now. I'm an African American. I said, what in the world am I doing? But I can see the same similarities in the struggles of African Americans in America. We have overcome some parts of it. So there's a symbolic, yes. It's the flame that's on liberty outside.
Sorry, one more question. Has your law firm been involved in other cases brought against heads of state before?
Hi, my name is Salman Yunus, and I work in the research and litigation in the cases related to ATS and TVPA, Alien Tort Claims and Torture Victim Protection Act. I work with Panunda firm, particularly in this area. Yes, our law firm actually, not our law firm, but Mr. Panoon has been the legal advisor to another organization, Seeks for Justice, and Seeks for Justice has filed cases under ATS and TVPA against ex-Prime Minister of India, Manmohan Singh, and other notable officials from India like Chief Minister of Punjab, Prakash Singh Badal, head of Congress Party, Sonia Gandhi. So we have been involved in litigation before.
Do you mind saying what happened with those cases regarding Manmohan Singh and Sonia Gandhi?
Actually, the case against Manmohan Singh, and I'm glad that you brought it up, that case is still pending before the Federal District Court in Washington, D.C., and one of the important points in that case that has been decided is that the presiding judge has ruled that Manmohan Singh is not immune from the acts that he committed as Finance Minister of India. And the judge clearly ruled that the immunity extends only to the actions committed as head of the country and not to the actions that are committed as a finance minister or any lower position. So that applies to Narendra Modi, as Mr. Panoon said earlier, that the acts that he committed and the one that we alleged in the complaint are the ones that he committed as a chief minister, not as a prime minister.
Sorry, what were the acts that Manmohan Singh accused?
Well, Manmohan Singh's case is based on the acts that he committed as a finance minister of India during the decade of 90s. He was the finance minister and he was writing checks for extrajudicial killings to the cops and other people for the counterinsurgency operations in Punjab. There were over 100,000 people who were killed extrajudicially by the security forces in Punjab, and the members of the security forces, including the head of the security in Punjab, they were given free hand and free money from the government exchequer, written by by Manmohan Singh as a reward for killing the accused terrorists or militants or anyone who was of political dissent. So the charges against him is funding the extrajudicial killings.
Hi, I have a quick question. Are you working only for organizations or heads of the states in India, or are you working for heads of the states in neighboring countries like Pakistan, or where when their heads of the state come here, they have been alleged and there are lots of cases going against them?
We are committed to human rights violation, and we work for organizations and individuals who approach us. We are a professional law firm, so we do not discriminate between any countries or any head of the state. If anyone approaches us for regarding human rights violation from any other country, we will look at the facts, and if possible, we will definitely work on it.
Can you cite any cases where you have?
We have not been approached by anyone.
Thank you.
So,
Can I just follow up on one thing? Theoretically speaking, if this were to come to fruition, what would you like to see happen in a trial setting? What do you think would be an appropriate remedy?
see, this is, as we discussed in the beginning, this is a civil lawsuit. We are asking for a declaratory judgment that the attacks on the Muslim community in 2002 were not rights. It was a systematic and organized killings targeting a Muslim community, so it should be declared as a genocide, and compensatory and punitive damages for the victims.
The victims, specifically the ones who are involved in the lawsuit?
Yes, 2002.
One more question.
Sure.
So Sikh for Justice has had launched a petition some time back.
Yes.
And that gathered a lot of signatures, but then later those signatures were removed by the White House staff. Would you care to comment?
That's a separate issue. Since what you asked, I'll be more than happy to explain. The signatures, I think, crashed more than 100,000. But then suddenly one day we saw that it came back to 1,000 or a few hundreds, and we started investigating with the White House petition. They said they are investigating that there might be some fraud going on, and they issued a statement as well. Under fraudulent checks, they found something. But when we really went to them, then they reissued a statement that it's an anomalous procedure that they have followed. So there is a difference between fraud and anomalous. Anomalous means that the standard procedure was not followed. In the Sikh community, mostly elder and the Sikh community is uneducated, and they do not have their own emails. So what they were saying is that you are using multiple emails and using the names, which is perfectly fine with the Gmail accounts, and that is illegal. We are still going with the White House, and after September 30th, we'll be working on that one. We have filed a FOIA with that. It's not settled because they said fraudulent check and then they came up with the statement that it's anomalous. Anomalous means the standard procedure is not followed.
Can I add something with regard to the service? You had asked that what are the prospects of members of public serving Narendra Modi. The service in this lawsuit is being governed under the New York state laws, not the federal rules. And the New York state law provides that the service can be accomplished from a distance, which means that you could serve somebody even from 10 feet and throw the papers right across to him, close to him. So that is why we are hoping that while Modi will be attending events at Ground Zero and Grand Central and Madison Square Garden, we are approaching to the public that members of the public, somebody could print it out from our website or AJC's website, take it with him, and if he sees Modi 10 feet or 15 feet away, he could just flip them across to him and the service will be accomplished.
Thank you all for attending, and we really appreciate you taking time and going over this issue. Thank you very much again.